Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I hope y'all are having a good, productive day. Um, I'm trying to get this camera thing straight. Like sometimes when I'm talking and I'm looking down, I'm looking at the screen so I can see what's going on. But when I look up, I can't see anything. I can't see myself. So it's kind of weird. So if I'm looking down while I'm talking, that means I'm trying to see myself and make sure everything looks good. So um I'm gonna try to look up in the camera so y'all can see that I'm actually talking to y'all. But today we're gonna talk about the struggles with co-parenting and blended families and being a step parenting. Then being a step parent and why some people are afraid to take on that responsibility and why some people avoid being with women with kids. So first I want to say that don't take it negatively if a person does not want to be with you because you have children. It's just something that people, when they look at a person with children, they automatically think about all the situations that other people talk about. They look at the negative, they look at the drama, the person might not accept them, and the kids might not accept them. The person that has a child by the other person might be disrespectful, and it might just be a whole big whirlwind of just drama. So sometimes people just want to avoid those things altogether and just start with somebody fresh that it could just be a one-on-one interaction and they can build together. And there's nothing wrong with feeling that way until a person could show you that their life is not like that. I'm gonna put it that way. Okay, so before I get into that, me before I start having children, I was the same way. I did not want to date a guy that had kids. It's normal for a woman that's young to like a man that's a few years older than her because they're more mature, they're more experienced, they may have a lot more to offer. So those men may come with maybe one child or two, just depending on how early he had children in his life. So at the time, I did not like like a guy that had a child only because of those same things. Like I didn't want to have to deal with baby mama drama. I didn't want to have to deal with, what if the child didn't like me? And I was young at the time. I had my first child when I was 22 years old. So any dating that I did before that, all the way up to that time, that's how my mindset was. And that wasn't really a long time. That was like a short span. So I don't know if I would have liked somebody that had a child if I had waited to have my first child when I got older. So I want to just bring up some key points to why people are afraid to take on that responsibility or why they just would want to just leave that alone altogether. For one, like I said, the child may not accept you. It's hard to try to get a child, especially if they're older, if they're not an infant or somebody that you can grow with if they're like a baby, to be able to accept you because they're used to their parents. And if somebody new comes in the picture, then that's a lot of convincing that you have to do, a lot of changes that you have to make. And you just have to do different things in order for the relationship to be comfortable for you, that person, and their children. And you have to have a lot of patience and a lot of understanding that this is a child and you can't take things personally if they were to act out a certain way or say things that you might not like. Number two, sometimes problems will arise about mutual respect between the new person you're with and the person that you made a child with. Not all the time does the person that you made a child with is receptive to having their children around a new person, or they may become jealous because you're with a new person. They may still have feelings for you, and all that will project outwardly and on into your new relationship, and it may put a burden on the person that you're with because you're trying to focus your time and your energy to build something with this person, but then you have this other person that still has feelings for you or hasn't gotten over you or maybe just jealous, and they're trying to sabotage your relationship. And you have to think about how that other person may feel and how they have to also be patient and just understand that these things may happen. But some people might not just want to deal with that altogether because they already know these things can happen. So what you have to do is you have to Make a drama free plate in your life before you even start dating somebody, before you start considering making somebody be important in your life. You need to talk to that person about, hey, what will the future look like if I were to move on, and I was to find somebody, and I have my children over here. How would you feel? How would you be receptive to that? See where the other person's head at, and that way you'll know what kind of place they will be coming from if you were to start introducing your children to somebody new. And it wouldn't be a surprise to you if they started acting out or acting a certain type of way, because you will already know beforehand, and you can probably nip that in the bud. Let's see. Discipline can be tough. A lot of times, of course, I understand that there's a lot of crazy things that go on in this world, and people have ulterior motives about, things that they do and the ways they behave, and they might not always treat your children right. And they do some destructive things that people don't even think to do to kids. So you have to be careful when you're talking about disciplining somebody's child. And that takes time and that takes trust, over time, that you have to build before you can trust somebody to do that. But communicate those things first. Also teach your kids respect. Teach your kids to not, treat an adult disrespectfully, and that way you don't have to be in a situation where you're always feeling like, okay, these kids are disrespecting me, but you're not doing anything about it. But then I can't do anything about it because you don't want me to say anything to them. So if you don't want anybody to say anything to your kids, you have to teach your kids how to respect other adults, teach your kids how to act, how to behave. And if a person does come to you and say, okay, your children are being a certain type of way and you don't want them to discipline them, then you have to get on to them yourself until you can trust that person enough to physically, insert themselves in the situation. Also trust that person that they can say the right things, just like anybody would do with your child. Just like if your child would go to school and the teacher would tell them the right thing to do, trust your partner in that type of way too. That they would at least say the right things to your child and let them know what if they're doing something wrong, without lashing out at them or acting like they're trying to do something to your child or that they're doing something wrong, because that can cause a shift and a friction in your relationship as well. And people will be scared to speak their minds or feel like they're walking on eggshells when it comes to your kids or when it comes to you. And you don't want to build that type of distance and that type of space between you and that person just because they're dealing with kids that's not made by them and they're trying to do the best that they can. So you have to sometimes put yourself in their shoes and thinking about, how would this affect me if you come at me like this, and just have a real conversation about how you want things to happen. Even when it comes to that other parent, sometimes that other parent doesn't want you saying anything to them or don't want you touching them, so you have to have that respect for them as well. If you can come into a situation that's already respected and people have their guidelines and their space, and they're already just doing things accordingly like they're supposed to do, that's a good thing. But not all the time do you find situations like that. Also, just building a structure. Blended families. Sometimes you may have kids that come from this type of structure. You may have kids that come from a different type of structure on this side. And when the two meets, then they're used to one thing and the other children are used to another thing. So you have to teach those children collectively all together in one roof in your household when they come with you, that these are the rules in this house. I know that these things may go on in the households that you're at on this side and this side, but when you come here, this is what is expected of you, and you have to enforce those rules. And they might not come overnight and they might not be understood, because when children are used to something, that's what they're used to, and that's what they believe should happen because that's what they were taught. But you have to um redirect what's going to go on into the house, because now you have so many different households that you have to go to, and so many different rules that you have to abide to. And it's something new to them as well. So you have to take that in consideration about their feelings and how they have to learn all these new things, and how they're trying to also please and satisfy you on top of their other parents as well. So it's just going to take a lot of time and patience when it comes to just being a stepmother, stepfather, um, blended family, co-parenting, whatever you want to call it. It takes a lot of time, dedication, and just patience to be able to fit all of that in. Also, you're going to be limited to the time that you spend with that person, because it's different dating a person when it's just you one on one. You have more time, um you have more time to do things. You can do more just together. Y'all can go more places. It's less money you have to spend, and all that time is directed on you, and you can basically just get to know that person on a more deeper, more intimate level when it's just that person. But when that person has kids, they don't have a lot of time to be free. um you have to spend more money, because if you want to do more things with that person, is going to involve them and their children. If you're thinking about getting a home, then you have to get a bigger home, because you have to have more bedrooms, especially if you have a blended family. Those children are going to come over at some point if they're not staying there the whole time. So a woman that has children, they're more likely to have the child more than the father does, because that's just how the system works. So that father may have children, but they may come over a few days out the week, or however they have their custody set up. And the mother usually mostly have the children they're living in the home. So that's why it may seem that more men don't want to date women that have children already, because those children are always going to be there, and that's more responsibility for them. So we can't be upset if a person chooses not to date a woman with kids, because that's their preference. We have to understand that a lot comes with that. We already say it's hard enough for us to raise our own kids. So if we're just trying to find a man that's going to just say, okay, I'm going to take all of y'all in, you and your children, and I just drop everything that I'm doing. I don't have to work anymore. I don't have to do anything anymore. We have to be more sensitive to understand how how much that is going to be for that person. We can't just have an attitude like you have to do it, or you're supposed to do it, or I deserve this. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's a good thing when a person decides to do that, but be more appreciative and more patient when they do decide to do it. If you decide you want to be with that person wants to accept you, then y'all kind of have to work together in many different levels and many different ways to make it easier for it to even happen. But we have to just be open to know that that's why people think the way they think, and that's why they make this decisions that they make. Also with money, like, you're not going to be able to, it really just depends on how much that person makes. Like, you have to spend more money going out to eat, going on trips. You have to pay for more rooms, for a condo, for a hotel, clothing, medical bills, school, just all of those things are gonna be taken into account when a person is just analyzing, they're thinking about the future with you, and they just see what they have to deal with. Not saying that it's a burden when I say having to deal with, because a lot of people take small words and they turn them into something big, like you're attacking them. But it's real stuff. It's real stuff that people have to do. Like, people are not robots. We have emotions, we have struggles. We have to know that in the future, what if I don't make enough money in the future, or we come into a depression, and or I get laid off, how am I going to take care of this woman and her kids? You see, like, you got to take all of that into account. It's different when you're meeting somebody and it's just you and that person. Y'all could talk about what y'all plans is going to be. Y'all could have one child at a time the way y'all want to have it. Y'all could do things what's comfortable for y'all, because y'all starting from day one, starting off fresh. But if you already just taking in a whole family, that's big. That's a big deal. And we have to look at it that way and understand that everybody doesn't want to do that. Like if I didn't have kids right now, at the age that I am, I probably would still feel a little bit that way. You see what I'm saying? Because I'll have to take into account that, okay, I'm 35 and, you know, most men have kids at this age. So I had to settle for, you know, what I could get if I find a good man or whatever, whatever, whatever. But in the back of my mind, I'm still going to be like, okay, well, I know that this is what's out here, but I want this. We got to be real and true about ourselves. We can't just change how we think about things just because we're in a different situation. I can't say that, okay, now that I have kids, everybody should think different now because, you know, everybody should want this because this is what everybody has right now. When before I wasn't even thinking that way. I have to know that, okay, well, my options might be a little limited now because now I have kids, you know, now I have kids and everybody might not want somebody with kids, especially if they didn't make the kids with me. And I have to take in consideration that they might look at a few things and think that that may be a burden. So now I have to see, how can I make it easier if I do come and connect with somebody? How can I make it easy for them and make them feel like they don't have to worry about X, Y, and Z? That's going to be the next goal. How can I work on things so it won't be so hard for them if they do decide to date me and I do have kids? But I don't want to be feeling like I'm entitled and just be like, oh, well, you should or you're supposed to. Do those things without being entitled, because that is what runs a person off. And that type of attitude and that type of vibe is what people pick up on when you're trying to date somebody and you're trying to get them to understand your perspective on things. They're not going to understand it when you come off as entitled or that you're supposed to. Because what they're going to do is be like, no, I don't have to do anything, which technically they don't have to. It's always your decision, whatever you want to do. Um, Well, that's about it. This wasn't going to be a long video. I just wanted to point out some key points that people may look at when they're trying to find somebody or they're dating, and that person may have children and they might like that person, but they might be a little taken aback because they have kids and they might have a fear of certain things that may come along with it. All right, y'all. I'll see y'all in the next video. Y'all be blessed. Stay prayed up, stay safe, and subscribe.